I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is NoFX. From the who is this big homie?
The name of the song is The Decline, and it is for Jacob.
Shout out to Jacob. For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up in Middle America with Vin and Sori. Very interesting stuff there. We had a marathon fireside about a couple days ago. It was 6 hours long. Very revealing fireside, say it that way. And here we go. This is NoFX, The Decline. Good Lord, this song is 18 minutes long.
That's not something we typically do. You have to specifically talk to us about that before. So, just so everybody's not like, oh my gosh, I can pay for an 18-minute
There are
song.
multiple ways to get your song reviewed, dear listener. My favorite way is the community option, $1 at the gate, at Patreon.
This big homie put two of them together. He was on the live stream, and then he jumped on the 125 tier.
Right, so if you...
So he coupled them together to be able to make this happen.
If you'd let me finish so the good people can know what I'm talking about.
I want to hear from Sori.
$1 at the gate. $1 at the gate on Patreon gets you into the community. Then you will get snatched up by an alliance leader. The alliances are basically genre specific. We've got a black metal alliance, an extreme metal alliance. It's really, really cool stuff. I think there's one that's kind of like a power metal type alliance too. I think Kellandros is in that one. So you got that. Then you have the community. There's what's the game? There's Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I didn't know we tried.
I mean,
Minecraft.
It's a whole other world
Well,
once you get into the gate.
Yeah.
And then so that's a community option. That's my favorite option. This is Sori's favorite option, the Filthy Capitalist option. $125 gets you skipped right to the head of the line.
People who know what they want.
So if you're an individualist and you're not a collectivist, you just jump right to the head of the line and get your song reviewed, and kind of like at Disney World. And this is what this brother did. So we are going. Let me get my lyrics up here. Was it NoFX? What's the name of the song again?
The Decline.
The Decline. All right. So sit tight. Get a cheeseburger, hamburger, something like that burger, and enjoy it. Gotham is yours.
Popcorn, whatever. Although we can't eat when we're doing the reviews. We've had complaints. Remember when we did the 15-hour rockathon? People were like, I'm just offended that you're eating during the song. I'm like, we were doing 15 hours straight. I'm going to eat in 15 hours. You could do it without eating, but not me. Okay, ready?
Unbelievable.
What's happening here? Do you hear stuff?
I don't hear a thing. Do you have it on mute?
No.
Okay, now I hear it.
Oh, it just started. There's a big long space at the beginning.
a squeeze that will ensure a kill. A kill is what you want. A kill is why we breed. The Christians love their guns. The church and NRA pray for their salvations. Pray on the lower face. The storybook's been read and every line believed. Curriculum's been set. Logic is a threat. Read and search that seed. Jerry spent some time in Michigan. 20-year vacation after only at a dime. Dime is worth a lot more in Detroit. A dime in California, a $20 fine. Jerry only stayed a couple months. It's hard to enjoy yourself while bleeding out the ass. Asphyxiation is simple and fast. It's been 17 fun years of being someone's bitch. Don't think. Drink your wine. Watch the fire burn. His problems, not mine. Just be there, my own citizen. I wish I had a shilling for every senseless killing. I'd buy a government. America's for sale, and you can get a good deal on it, and make a healthy profit. Or maybe tear it apart. Start with assumption that a million people are smart. Smarter than one. of the laissez-faire.
it does.
So we'll borrow it from this a little bit.
Place a wager on your greed, a wager on your pride. Why try to beat them when a million others tried? We are the horde, intellectually Spain. We are the queer, dysfunctionally raised. One more pill to kill the pain. One more pill to kill the pain. One more pill to kill the pain. Living through conformity. One more prayer to keep me safe. One more prayer to keep us warm. One more prayer to keep us safe. It's gonna be a better place. Lost the battle, lost the war, lost the things worth living for, lost the will to win the fight. One more pill to kill the pain. Na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na. The going get tough, the tough get dead. Don't pay attention, pay the rent. Next up, kids, pay for your sins. A little faith should keep us safe. The human existence is failing. Resistance essential. The future, routine of the anthem.
This is like PhD level punk. This is PhD level punk, ladies and gentlemen.
PhD?
Like, these guys are like on another level.
Oh, yeah.
Like when we did Punk Week, punk was more.
They didn't come across like Sex Pistols.
That's what I was gonna
now
say.
they feel about their queen.
Well, there's that, and like early proto punk was kind of like just simplistic, and it was more about the attitude and the. I'm not disrespecting the genre because I think it's necessary. It wasn't really about like musicianship and technicality and all that. But this right here, that little spot in like the 10-minute, the 10-minute one with the bass, what they did with the bass.
Yep.
That sounded exactly like that Tool.
It absolutely did.
Go to the 10-minute part. What's the name of that song? Schism. Remember we had this big argument about how to pronounce schism? Okay, so that's that. Now I'm gonna play Tool's Schism, and you'll see that it sounds like
I feel like I
almost
remember
exactly
it,
the
believe it or
same.
not.
I was like, yo, no way. Danny Carey or whatever. No, that's the drummer. Who's the bassist from Tool? What's his name?
I don't know. Did you brush your teeth this morning?
Why?
It's a question.
Yes.
You
why?
did?
Why?
It doesn't smell like you did. It smells like you didn't brush your teeth, and I didn't brush my teeth, and so like it's just a little intense right here.
Justin Chancellor. Okay, so here's the Tool. Okay, that's good. Okay. So it's right. Okay, so play your part. Okay. I mean, there's enough.
There's some absolutely.
There's enough variation, but that sounds pretty
Wow, good
freaking
job
similar.
finding that part on there.
Your boy Vincent, huh? So shout out to Justin Chancellor. He must be a big NoFX fan. But go ahead. What did you think of the song?
What? This came out first?
Oh yeah, Patrol. This came out first.
That's such a weird feeling.
The other one came
I was
out
like, oh, they give a shout out to Tool.
Yeah, the other one came out in
That's
2000.
huge. That's crazy that Tool would have
Yeah.
given them a shout out. Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
Patrol.
Now, these people come across, but I guess this is what punk does. They come across like it's a joke and they're having fun, but then they're talking about significant stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the punk aesthetic. It's kind of like this combination of I don't care anymore, I'm an outsider, I don't want to be part of your dumbass system, but at the same time, like, they're talking about really, really significant stuff. But this is the best punk song I've ever heard in my entire life. And I don't think I'm going to hear anything close to this ever again. First of all, the song was 18 minutes and 21 seconds, 18 minutes and 2 seconds. And so, right before we started cutting this song, you were like, all right, we gotta do this song. It's like 18 minutes. I was like, I'm not gonna do no 18-minute song, but then you convinced me to do it. So normally, if it's a very, 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 very long song, I'm like, here we go, we're in for it. But this to me was like 4 or 5 songs in one song, and then they used their musicianship to transition from one to the other, and I was sad to see the song go. Because I had a relationship with the song, I was enjoying it immensely, and then it was over. It was pretty sad. Especially the way that it ended was absolutely freaking amazing. But you need to sit down and hang out because it's going to be a very long review.
Okay, well, can you pass me my water? Or a mint?
You got to show respect for these bands.
All right, let's get into it.
But I'm glad. Like I've seen a couple like reaction channels. Sometimes, no disrespect to them. Shout out to every reaction channel on the planet. And if it's like a really long song, they'll cut the review. Like there was one where they had Metallica's One, and they didn't listen to it all the way. Like in the video, they cut it. Yeah, I get it. It's a 7-minute plus song. But I'm very, very glad that we've got our
platform where we do it how we do.
We do it long form and let these guys speak their truth. Yeah. Okay, so what did you think the song was about?
Well, I mean, there was political stuff in here, and I mean, I hate it when you just ask me that. Like, just start going into it, and then, you know, I'll put my 2 cents in when I want to.
Okay. Well, what's your opinion on the song?
Well, my opinion on the song, I don't think I liked it as much as you did, because it was 18 minutes, which is a long time. You know, I think that, like, the ADD kicks in or something, and it's hard to, like, sit there, especially. To be honest with you, it didn't feel like 18 minutes. But because I had it in my head that it was 18 minutes, I think that messed with me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, some of the stuff that he said that I liked was when he said, blame it on, well, he was talking about, well, it was right at the beginning. Blame it on human nature, man's destiny, blame it on the greediocracy. Fear of God, the fear of change, the fear of truth. And when that part got said, I was like, yeah, so much comes from fear. And it can be fear. There's all kinds of different things. There's a fear of God. Then people are afraid of change. People are afraid of the truth. And I think that that's true. And I think that can really mess with us if we're not careful. And then I honestly didn't know what he was like. Then when he went into his, like, having the gun and then he kills his brother, I didn't understand. I really didn't. It like what you said. It felt like it was like a bunch of songs and then they put it all into one song. So anyway, take it away.
Okay. Well,
Simply the worst. The worst breakdown what I just did. I'm so freaking hot in this room.
You're the worst. You're the absolute worst right now. Okay, so this song to me was I think the whole song was not necessarily political, but social commentary. Right? So where are all the stupid people from? How they get to be so dumb? Bred on Purple Mountain Range, feed amber waves of grains to lesser human beings, zero feelings. You know, from Purple Mountain.
I didn't see what they were doing there. Because I was focused on.
I used to go to this Catholic school, and not only did we have to sing the Pledge of Allegiance, but we had to sing this song.
We had to also.
Majesty.
I don't remember when, but I do.
And then we did. We used to sing "This land is your land, this land is my land," and I was still on my Malcolm X energy as a kid. I was like, "This land isn't your land. You took it from the Indians." I said to the teacher.
What'd she say?
She just got very red in the face and just kept it moving. That was the same lady that yelled at me because I wouldn't take the candy corn. Remember that whole discussion? Mm-hmm. Blame it on human nature, which is what I blame it on. Shout out to Kellen Dross. Man's destiny. Well, look, if I really don't understand, like, if you think that humanity is basically good, then how do you explain this country or the last 100 years? Like, what do you mean humanity is basically good? Every marginalized group has had to fight and claw and scratch for basic rights. I was talking about this during the fireside when I was like, you've never seen a revolution that didn't get bloody. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution.
I think if we were basically good, Medicare for all wouldn't even be a question.
Correct. Liberation of slaves, took out 600,000 dead bodies. Like, if we were basically good, then we would coalesce around marginalized people and make sure that they were okay. But those people have had to fight and claw. LGBT people had to do the Stonewall riots. Like, they had to riot to not be constantly harassed by police. Because what was happening in Stonewall is that, 14th Street over there in Manhattan, police used to go down there and harass LGBT people, shove them, arrest them, beat the hell out of them because they were gay. And finally, it's a trans black woman that popped the whole thing off, and they had to get violent, and then they got their rights. Well, they didn't get their rights, but it was the beginning of them getting their rights.
What was the thing that tipped it off? What happened with that lady?
Stonewall riots?
Oh.
The Stonewall riots. I mean, these LGBT people, they finally fought back. The cops would come systematically every week just to screw with them because they were gay and they were, whatever. And finally, they had enough.
All the crimes going on. Can't deal with those. You got to go pick on people.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
Yeah, it was crazy, and they took it to those police.
Really?
Yeah, they did.
And then that's what stopped it.
That's what. Yeah. Yeah. Look. Somebody posted this in. It's true though. The cops are a limited resource, and they can't it's not like they're an omniscient, omnipotent group of people. I mean, they get tired. But there's always going to be more of the people than the cops, so that they were saying, look, we can do shifts. These cops, can, hey. And so they didn't want that type of energy, and so it helped them. I mean, so my point is, I just don't, the idea that human nature is basically good does not seem to be borne out in history. Every single advancement for marginalized people had to come because there was blood on the ground. Every single one.
Wow. Yeah.
And in all those situations, there was always a non-violent solution to the problem. So, after, Martin was killed, the irony of the whole thing about Martin was that he was non-violent, yada, 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 and we don't want to do riots, yada, yada, yada. After Martin was killed, there were riots that caused $47 million in damages. Keep in mind, this is 40, 50 years ago.
Wow.
That's probably about, maybe 250 million now. And then the Civil Rights Act was passed. So it's completely ironic. You have Martin Luther King, who's this non-violent, we don't want to do that, da-da-da-da-da. He gets killed.
Yep.
And then people react with violence, and then the Civil Rights Act gets passed. So you had a peaceful option with Martin, but it took the peaceful guy being sacrificed to where people said, oh,
wait a minute,
I can understand y'all killing Malcolm.
Right.
Because he was talking about any means necessary, but Martin was talking about hugging y'all and all this shit, and you killed him anyway? Okay, so people... I just don't understand how people could say human nature is basically good. Even if I wasn't.
Why would they have killed Martin? I don't understand.
What do you mean? He was still on the wrong team. He was still protesting police brutality and all the other jazz.
How could they have? I feel like that's a major miscalculation of the situation. Like, I don't see how you can miscalculate it to that degree.
Yeah, I think that they didn't really realize that. When
isn't it obvious?
Martin kept preaching a nonviolence message, but the reason he had to keep preaching it is because even people that were following him wanted to get violent. Mm-hmm. So when he was preaching the nonviolence message, it wasn't necessarily because he liked it and he thought it was a good strategy to preach. He was trying to keep folks in line.
Right.
Because people had it, and you hit, like I said in the live stream, you hit this nihilistic point where you don't care if you live or die. And that's the people that Martin was dealing with. And so he was always trying to keep people, so...
I legit don't understand, that's like the stupidest decision. And I half wonder if they wanted to incite that. Like, how could you miscalculate to that degree? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, they got used to it. Because I think they figured, hey, if these people really wanted to get violent, they would have just followed Malcolm. Right? I mean, that makes a lot of logical sense. I mean, I've been in situations where people miscalculate.
Let's say they don't want to get violent, and that's why they're following Martin. If you kill Martin, they love him. Like, what do you think? Do you think that they're just going to be like?
Because if Martin, here's the irony. If Martin was around after Martin's execution, he would have told them not to get violent.
Right.
So that's the thing. That's what happens. Is that Martin's is constantly trotted out to control people's behavior, and what people don't realize is that, it's like they said in the song, "Beg my pardon to Martin, we ain't marching, we shoot." So that's what they didn't understand, was that people that were following Martin had violent ideations. It's just that he was so strong with his
quelling it.
He was such a powerhouse, rhetorically speaking, that he was able to quell it, and he was able to give people hope. Martin symbolized the hope that if you do it non-violently, you can get justice.
Oh, right, yeah.
So when they killed him, it said, no, there's no other option but violence.
Because, you could say, well, if they killed Malcolm, then you could say, well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He had that mentality, blah, blah, blah. But when you're looking at Martin, and he's saying, this non-violence, blah, blah, and yet he still dies. He dies before Malcolm.
No, he died after Malcolm.
He died after Malcolm?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
So Malcolm was killed first.
How long were they separated by?
And then they killed him. It was about 3 to 5 years, but...
Okay, so then it makes more sense then, now that they killed him.
Yeah.
Because they're silencing the big voices.
You silenced the non-violent voice. And I think it was definitely a miscalculation, 100%. And, you know,
Yeah.
like I said,
I mean, obviously.
next year, the agency has, you know, there's a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, that things are going to get released next year. And it's people are going to be it's going to be interesting stuff.
How many years does it take?
That.
Is it like 8 years?
It's like 50 or 40 years.
Woo!
Yeah. What, for those FOIA things? The
Yeah.
redacted classified documents?
Yeah,
it's,
every 50.
it's about 40. It's basically when the generation dies off and they put the other ones there. And I'm pretty certain that the document's still going to be heavily redacted, but I mean, you can see who is behind the death of Malcolm and Warren. It's going to be pretty obvious.
Oh my gosh. See,
In less than a year.
The Purple Mountains, the Amber things, I didn't pick up on that because I was focused on where all the stupid people from, how they get to be so dumb. So I thought that this was gonna be like kind of like a trolling funny song, like just about stupid people. So I didn't even realize what was going on.
No,
there.
he's saying some significant shit.
Well, yeah.
Add the Bill of Rights, subtract the wrongs. Brilliant.
Yeah. What is he saying there?
Well, you know the Bill of Rights. It's all these rights that you have, yada
Yeah.
yada yada. So rights in the sense of, you know, your right to.
I know right and then wrong.
But then it says subtract the wrongs, so it's a double entendre. Well,
Yeah, but I see the rights and the wrongs, but what's the subtract the wrongs?
well, because of the way that we've applied the law in an unjust fashion, that violates the Bill of Rights. So he's basically saying if we lived according to the Bill of Rights, we would subtract the wrongs of our country. But because we don't actually take the Bill of Rights seriously, then we have all these wrongs, which is what Cap was saying. But, you know, folks didn't want to listen to Cap, and so now here we are.
Yeah.
Memorize and sing Star-Spangled Songs when the questions aren't ever asked. Is anybody learning from the past? We're living in united stagnation. Yeah, because, you know, I mean, it was 1999. I think we've made a lot of progress in regard to the overall zeitgeist about talking about inequality and things like that. But back in 99, like, I think 9/11 changed us in so many different ways because it was such a shock to the system and you were forced to deal with politics now. Everybody was forced to deal with politics after 9/11 because politics came to our doorstep. Whether it was unilateral support for Israel, what we're going to do in Afghanistan, are we going to invade Iraq? So, you know, before it was like, don't talk about religion, politics at the dinner table, but now you had no choice. Because what else were you going to talk about after 9/11? So, but back in 99, everybody was like, hey, let's chill. Americans were kind of like...
Well, I think we were detached from the reality of the rest of the world because nothing had happened on our
Yeah,
soil.
but we were also detached. White America was also detached from what was happening to people like, you know, me. And again, you don't talk about politics and everything was safe and, you know, life was kind of boring and there was nothing at stake and there you go.
Did you see their CD? That's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it was clear and then there's that one little thing. Yeah. And then he talks about the gun stuff. What have I done? I took a 22, a gift from me to you, to bed with me each night. Keep it clean, polished, well, cherished every cartridge, every shell. And then he's talking about these people that he killed.
Oh, his brother.
Well, that was his second kill. One of which was his brother.
Why? I don't understand that. That seemed like so out of nowhere to me.
What do you mean? I mean, I think it follows logically. He's talking about America and the greediocracy. You know, he's talking about unfettered capitalism when he talks about laissez-faire. We'll talk about that in a second. And so this is another one. The gun cult, as my friend Mark Shea says. And I'm not saying everybody who owns a firearm is part of the gun cult. I'm not talking about that. But I am talking about, you know, 1990, this came out in November. Columbine had happened in April. So Columbine had happened in April of 1999. And this came out in November. So I do think that there is some of that, you know, we were still feeling the pain of that in the backdrop. And, you know, every single time one of these gun things happens, you always get these Second Amendment people. And quite frankly, I don't know the solution to that problem. I don't know the solution to the gun crime problem. Like, if I could wave a magic wand and make all the guns disappear, I would. But anytime you try to legislate, you know, this gun stuff, you know, it's like Bernie said, we've got 350 million people in America and 400 million guns.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's the tricky part.
How can you
is
manage that?
We've been born and raised on it. It's not like other countries where they don't have it and they haven't had it.
Correct.
So it's different. Like it seems like it's working well in those areas, but when you have people and they have their guns now, and the thing is, people feel a certain sense of security. It alleviates some of their fears because they have the weapon in their possession. So you take that away from them, and And
Americans are different in their relationship to guns and their willingness to be aggressive with guns. Like, for example, I had a friend who was in a pretty important special forces unit overseas. We were hanging out one time. He's like, Americans are ridiculous with their war fighting. And this guy was a killer.
Yeah.
This dude was a stone cold killer. He had put a lot of folks underground. But he was like, man, the way Americans are and da 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 da. Just as far as like war fighting and all the rest of it, he's like, yeah, he was basically, we're still the best. And quite frankly, historically speaking, they are the best. His outfit or whatever. But
band of brothers.
But you know, it was kind of an eye-opening conversation because the guy was talking about just the aggression and the systematic way in which, you know, dead checking and he was blown away. And I'm not, you know, at the time I was like, yeah, but now I'm like, holy shit. If a stone cold killer is saying that we are next level stone cold killers, like, that's not good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's good in warfare, sure, but all these people are coming back home, though. That's the problem.
I think that
they're coming back home.
Like, go ahead, keep talking. I'm going to show you something. I can put it in the video.
The Christians love their guns. The church and the NRA pray for their salvations. Pray on lower face. There you go.
See, stuff like this. The left. If you kill somebody breaking into your house, it's because you value your things more than someone else's life. Me. So anyway, I started blasting. Like, there's, like, even just in the conversation with people. I mean, this is my baby cousin. He's not a baby anymore, you know what I mean? But he was a lot younger than I was.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when I run across posts like that, the lackadaisical way in which we talk about our guns in relation to other human beings is shocking when you stop and you think about it. You're like, you just made a joke about killing somebody. Like,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I don't think
life and death, like the concept of life and death and the value of human beings has dwindled. And I don't know if it's everywhere, but in our country, and I don't know if it has to do with, I think that we underestimate the value of what a human being is. And so it becomes a lot about our stuff, our whatever, you know, obviously, like, my thing, if the person's coming to take your stuff, like, I just can't imagine shooting somebody over stuff. Like, I can see shooting somebody when they're coming after your family, because that's your family. Like, that to me, like, you know, I think that we should try to avoid that, obviously, at all costs. But that makes sense to me. But I don't understand, like, people's things being that important to them. Or people engaging in a conflict when somebody goes to, let's say somebody goes to rob you, like, they want that chain. Just give them the chain. I don't understand.
I'm not sure.
Pride, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, well, Americans
worth it.
Americans are socialized, especially certain pockets of Americans are socialized that this is a morally good thing to do. Obviously, it's a badge of your masculinity, blah, blah, blah. And so that's what I was just going to say. Like, people overseas, you have no idea the American relationship to the firearm.
Well,
you just have
what do you mean
no
it's a badge of your masculinity? Like, if somebody's trying to take something from you and use your gun?
Yeah, it's called castle law. Somebody breaks into your castle. It doesn't matter even
that's
if
because you're getting way too much of your value from your stuff.
I really don't think it's about the stuff. I think it's about a certain type of principle. And if you're raised that this is what you're supposed to do, if somebody comes into your property or breaches your castle, that this is a morally good thing to do, and that your points as a man gets exponentially higher if you do something like that, then it's beyond just I didn't want them to take my TV. It's you came into my castle, so now I'm gonna blow you away.
Yeah, but I've seen some people that are like, there's a difference between somebody has a weapon and they're like, I hope nobody, because I don't want to, hurt anybody. But then there's other people, like, I've seen them also post, like, they get a weapon in their house and they're like, I hope that's not the neighbors. I hope somebody breaks it.
Right,
because they want to shoot somebody.
Because they were socialized that their founding fathers, that's the heroes of their country. They're socialized that is what...
Not at all what happened. We came in and we took land from other people. That would be the Indians fighting back. That doesn't even mean they're
the Revolutionary War, right? What was that? It happened during the fireside. They were like, well, that was because it was tyranny and blah, 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 blah. The same people that were saying that the writers now are bad people. They were saying, well, I forgot the guy, it was FX something. He's like, well, that was different because there was tyranny and all the rest of it, and they had to stand up for their rights and yada, yada, yada. So these people feel that they're the inheritors of that, and they're going to continue that tradition of fighting for their rights and self-determination and yada, yada, yada. So it's not about the TV. A lot of these people spend more money on the firearm than they would about any of the thing that they're protecting. The firearm is more expensive than the TV that they would shoot you over. So, like, it's deeper than that. It's part of the American ethos, and it's one of the reasons why
I think there's a real frustration with the feel of powerlessness. If somebody overpowers you and takes from you and leaves you feeling like a bitch.
To your point, why would you actively take a picture of your gun and then put it on Facebook?
That's
and
what I'm
challenge?
saying.
Right, and so that doesn't explain that. Right. But the psychology of it, and to be socialized into we celebrate the 4th of July every year and all the rest of it. People don't understand. Like, the Whitney Houston one where she was singing Giant American Flag and over flies the F-15s and you're like, yes! And when you read histories about empire and propaganda, then you understand what's happening. But if you don't understand what's happening historically, and you don't understand that you're part of this empire called America, and Alexander the Great had his runs, and the Seleucids had their runs, and the Romans had their run, and Great Britain had its run, and now we're having our run. But you don't understand that.
Yeah.
So in order for you to maintain empire, you almost have to have a Spartan culture. Mm-hmm. Right? So the Spartans their entire culture was around warfare. Mm-hmm. It was their entire culture. So you've got an entire demographic of people who have been taught a Spartan type lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm saying it's deeper than just come get my property. It's really maintaining home base. It's like kind of the capture the flag type of thing. It's really that. Yeah. And so
I'll tell you what, it is extremely disheartening when I don't know if I just was misunderstanding what was going on in history class or if it was being presented a certain way. I have a feeling it was presented a certain way because I had this idea that America was godlike because we were, we just seemed in my history class, I wasn't always homeschooled. I went to private schools up until the 5th grade and then I was homeschooled, but it was the same school book system basically the entire time. With the exception of a few. But anyway, there was this they put forth this idea that America was honestly, a Christ figure, really. America is God on earth, and what we do is pure, and we are helping the world, and we are this and that. And then, of course, we heard about slavery, but it was kind of it seemed like a small hiccup in a grand ocean of greatness.
Otherwise good people.
So when I thought of America's weapons or America's military or anything, it was about justice for the world. It was about making right the things that were wrong. It's about stopping things like the Holocaust and stuff like that. It wasn't, and older than I'm getting, obviously, I think being married to you, you know, like, when you bring up different social issues, like, it's sad because it's like...
And the thing is...
Like, I used to have this feeling when I would, you know, do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then you would do the Pledge to the Christian flag, which kind of, like, they went against each other when you're really thinking about it, because which one are you pledging to? Because they're not doing the same thing. What's the matter?
Ripple.
Oh, that's empty.
Yours is yours empty. Go ahead, continue. Well, here's the thing: is that you know,
it's hard, and then now what I'm seeing what the cops are doing now, like in this moment, like I don't know when you're gonna see this video, but currently we're dealing with George Floyd died, and now you know the cops are going out because there's rioting, but you know this. One cop pushed down this old guy that was like 72 years old, and then the cop kind of got in trouble for it. The guy just was bleeding out on the sidewalk. The guy was kind of getting in trouble with it.
They just charge him with assault.
But then now there's like what 72 other 57 police officers that like
resigned from the ERT
because that guy's getting in trouble for pushing that old man down.
They're disgusted.
They're disgusted.
I thought it was an Onion article when I first read it. I was like,
it sounds like it.
It's like there's no way.
So it's just, you know, there's just a lot, and you're like, wow, like what is happening? Like the cops to me are a smaller representation of our military and our effect on the world. And if this is how we're treating our own people, the people from our own country, then there's no way in the world that we're doing stuff over there that's good. You know, I mean, there's no way. There's no way.
There's no way what?
What I just said before we got the call. There's no way that if we're doing that kind of stuff to our own people, the cops, that we're, you know, being a blessing to the nations, you know?
No, yeah, no. We're part of we're an empire, and if you read up on how empire is operated, that's how we operate, and it's just that's the end. And you know, there is among some of the alphabet groups this sort of it's called the doctrine of American benevolence. And the idea is that it's basically a hierarchy theory on a meta level that basically says there always has to be one or two top dogs in the world that basically run the world, and that the world is lucky that America is the top dog because we're a benevolent force for good on the planet. So that's their doctrine. That's what they actually believe. And so when
in
you
other words,
say,
it could be worse.
well, we've got historical precedent. Like when you say, oh my God, you know, we're a global empire, and it's like, well, we're not like Rome, where if you mess with Rome, they'd crucify 30 people. That's literally what I was thinking. They'd crucify 30 people on either side of the street and say, you know, of course, from my vantage point, I say, okay, that's bullshit. So because you're not Hitler, a serial killer's okay? If you had a guy that was a serial killer and you say, hey, I'm a benevolent force in the neighborhood, it's like, okay, you're not Adolf Hitler, that's awesome, but you're still a fucking serial killer. What the fuck is wrong with you? But that's sort of the mentality.
Well, not all that we do is bad.
Yes, not all that we do is bad, but just like what we say about Planned Parenthood, when people say, oh, 3% of Planned Parenthood's work is abortions. Yeah. They do other things. Yeah,
but I think when you're coming from the idea that everybody is sinful and that everybody has a sin nature, then you're saying, well,
these people are not.
It doesn't matter who's on top. There is going to be evil on top.
These people are not coming from a theological perspective. They're coming from a historical perspective. Yeah. Actually, one of these guys was on Joe Rogan. He's an agency guy. He's on Joe Rogan, and he talked about it. And so even now with you, like I can see, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, you know, would you like the question that they always ask?
One of two choices.
They always say, well, would you like Saudi Arabia to be the dominant nation on the planet? And obviously, most people would say no, or China, or whatever. Most people would say no, and so it gets very tricky because, you know, no matter what people say in public, I think most Americans do want American supremacy on the planet and do want the expansion of the American empire all over the planet. Now, I have seen the fallout of the American empire in the world, so I have a different perspective. But
well, what is your perspective? Who do you want to adopt?
I don't believe anybody should be on top, but I also think
You think we should like function as a panel?
well, I'm an isolationist, so I think we should just stay out of other people's business. And you know, we've got America,
Yeah, but
and
we
can dominate. We can dominate via trade. We don't have to dominate via bloodshed.
Yeah.
Because basically, people say what they want, but the world economy is still basically beholden to the American economy. I think 2008 proved that exponentially. So we don't have to do all this stuff, but when you have the power there and you spend, you know, $1 trillion on your military over a 10 to 15 year period, then, you know, if you're gonna, you know, if you buy the car, you want to drive it, right? So I don't believe that on a global level that there needs to be a global empire. I think that, you know, if America could just chill out and be good with what we have, then we'd be okay. And nobody would really mess with us. Nobody wants to smoke with the United States. So if we would just stay back and chill and take care of our own people, we'd actually see. The irony is, if we pulled out of all these theaters that we're in right now and took the capital that we're using on being an occupying force or threatening the planet, if we took all that and reinvested that into infrastructure and health and all the rest of it, we'd actually have a stronger military, because you'd have healthier people who are not under, you know, whatever. But there are different theories that if you keep a certain group of people in economic duress, you will never want for soldiers. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of competing theories. All of them make sense. If you take the emotion out of it, all of them make sense.
If you keep them in economic distress, you will never want for soldiers.
Right. When people are poor, they're more likely to sign up for a military job. And it's the same thing with police. You know, I just saw a meme yesterday. It was like, it takes 1,500 hours to become a hairdresser and 840 hours to train to be a cop. So, I mean, your Karina has to, you know, like she's, you know what I mean? So, yeah, so anytime you have a population in complete economic duress, that's what happens. It's, you know, in New York City back in the day, Italians, you know, it'd be like, you know, dogs and Italians need not apply. So they ended up in ghettos. And so then you have, you know, the mafia. So it's very interesting. I saw a documentary on Italy, Italian immigrants. You had a group of people that went to the mafia and a group of people that went to the police force. Because of their economic situation, they couldn't find jobs, and so you know,
one or the other.
It was one or the other, and so you had people from the same family tree at war with each other. Mm-hmm. Very fascinating documentary. Yeah. So I mean, these are very, very, very complex issues, and then you know he talks about religion and how religion. Follows it, you know, let's not look at any reason and all those things. And then he talks about, you know, how medicated everybody is, one more pill to kill the pain, and he was talking about serotonin and how this person presumably commits suicide. I mean, this was basically a good cross-section of the United States, and this was before 9/11. So these brothers would have wrote this song after 9/11. See, that's one of the things that, you know, 9/11, and then you had the military-industrial complex. Everybody kind of focused on that for almost a decade, but this talks about like the treasure trove of issues that, you know, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, Medicare for all, why the elites are against Medicare for all, because again, if you can keep a demographic of people so worried about their economic situation, then they don't have the energy to resist the other issues. Because you're just worried about paying the bill and not foreclosing on your house, so you don't have the excess energy to go out and fight injustice. So these people just stole, I don't know, $100 billion from us in these relief packages, and Jeff Bezos just earned like, I think since the crisis started, he got $454 billion richer since the crisis started, because obviously everything's going virtual and yada yada yada. People don't want to go to the stores, so Amazon. So he benefits exponentially from that, and then everybody else is worried about paying rent or mortgage, and so nobody has any strength to fight. and then it takes an extreme situation like George Floyd, there's a confluence of issues happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
So now these riots happen, and you know, people are using that as an opportunity to ventilate a lot of frustration, which is why you see a lot of white folks doing the destruction of property. And I don't think they were doing it because they love George Floyd. They're doing it because overall, think about the last 2 or 3 months that they've had. I understand. That's why I'm never going to say violence is good as a Christian, but I understand. You've been cooped up for 2 months. You lost your job. You got a bullshit $1,200 check. You don't know what's going to happen in the future, and you haven't been able to be outside. Now all of a sudden you get to be outside, and now all of a sudden you get to ventilate all of that pent up frustration. And so I think that's one of the things that's being lost in the current discussion about what's happening.
You get to take something for yourself.
Well, yeah, it's a feeling of empowerment because the government was the ones that told us to go home. The government was the ones that told us not to work. The government did that, and then the government. So this is a very unique situation. It'd be one thing where it's like if you lost your job and then you know the government doesn't owe you, whatever. But they're the ones that told people to stay home. You told me to stay home.
The government check, the $1,200. Like, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like,
what is that?
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not really.
Yeah.
It's like a $5 bill. You know what I mean? Like, if you got a family, you got rent, you've got food, you've got bill. It's just too much. It's just unbelievable. I don't know.
Elon Musk is 55% richer in 2020.
Like, there are people that are that reach out to us and they say, like, I'm doing fine. Like, their particular job is making it so that way they're doing better during this time.
Yeah.
And then there's other people. No way.
Yeah, and so I'd love for them to like do the Decline Part 2. Maybe we can get a petition going for NoFX to do Decline Part 2 because I would love for an 18-minute song to talk about our current cultural zeitgeist right now.
I totally agree. That would be good.
It's insane.
So why did it say we are the queer, we are the whore, ammunition in the class war?
I think that's the ultimate punk ethos, right? Like we're identifying with the outsiders. This one is funny. We are the worker, we love our cream, we sacrifice for Soylent Green. So Soylent Green.
I saw your face. I was like.
Yeah. So Soylent Green. I guess I've never watched the whole thing, but it was like this big thing, and Soylent Green was this great food, and all the rest of it. It was like really, really good. And then at the end of the movie, the guy goes, "Soylent Green is made out of people." So the whole time people were eating other human beings. Yeah. So he's saying we're Soylent Green, like we're the ones that are being consumed. Yada yada yada. So,
Gross.
yeah, they had a really good understanding of who they are. So I love this song. It's a really, really good song. The musicianship is incredible. The message is incredible. What are you giving it?
So I liked sonically how. I like when there's something that's heavy, but you kind of keep it light, because for me, like, having so much heavy all in the same thing, it's a lot. It's hard. Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
So having this, it's like, okay, it kind of made it a little bit easier to take. So the sound I liked that they put that little thing that sounded like Tool. Shout out to them for being able to do that at that point. And then obviously the message is super, super important. So I guess I would go with a 9.3.
This is an 11 for me. This is an 11. I think it is that important of a song. I thought they did a really, really, really good job summing up America around 1999, and I think it's a necessary. I think everybody should listen to this song in its entirety. I think it's absolutely necessary. So it's an 11 for me. I think that's the first 11 I've given out all month. I don't think I've given out any 11s in the last month and a half, but Kai will let me know. So it's an 11, good song. If you watch this review all the way till the end, the magic number is 7,842. The first person who sends that to me is gonna get a free mug. There you are.
First person?
First person that sends me that email with that number.
It's a race. The race is on.
Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.
Oh, so send it him well, he'll let you know, but you're gonna end up sending an email to vinandsori@gmail. Is that where you want?
Yeah, vinandsori@gmail.com.
vinandsori@gmail.com, and send your name, your address, and if you're outside of the United States, you need to send us your phone number. Otherwise, Teespring won't let us deliver.
The man who used to speak performs a cute routine. Feel a little patronized. Don't feel bad about what's inside your head. And if you've been misled, it's not that they don't care, yeah. The television put a thought inside your head, like a berry man alone. Jingle our lives, teach the world to sing in perfect harmony, a symphonic blank stare, yeah. It doesn't make you care. Not designed to make you care. They're betting you won't care. Place a wager on your greed, a wager on your pride. Why try to beat them when a million others tried? We are the whore, intellectually Spain. We are the queer, dysfunctionally raised. One more pill to kill the pain. One more pill to kill the pain. One more pill to kill the pain. Living through conformity. One more prayer to keep me safe. One more prayer to keep us warm. One more prayer to keep us safe. It's gonna be a better place. Lost the battle, lost the war, lost the things worth living for, lost the will to win the fight. One more pill to kill the pain. Na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na. The going get tough, the tough get dead. Don't pay attention, pay the rent. Next of kin, pay for your sins. A little faith should keep us safe.